The Mitchells vs. the Machines is an animated feature that was released earlier this year. It was directed by Michael Rianda. It stars Abbi Jacobson, Daniel McBride, Maya Rudolph, and Michael Rianda. And it was created and distributed by Sony Pictures Animation Studios, the same company that's brought to you such masterpieces like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, the Hotel Transylvania movies, and the Emoji Movie. So you know we're in great hands. The film follows the Micheal family, who are self-proclaimed to be the most dysfunctional family in the world. Kinda sucks for the world then when the entire human race is abducted by a robot uprising and the Mitchells are the only people left. And it's not very reassuring when you stop to realize that these bozos are humanity's last hope.
Game over, man. It's game over.
But all jokes aside, I'm going to keep this review as vague as possible because I want you to be like me and going into this movie as blind as humanly possible. I absolutely loved The Mitchells vs. the Machines. I didn't really know what to expect going into this movie since the only decent movie Sony Pictures have made recently is Into the Spider-Verse. But I've had friends telling me that no, seriously, this is a really good movie. They are seriously stepping up their game here. You need to check it out. It's a really good movie. And so, trusting my friend's judgment, I decided to give the movie a go. And despite the substantial praise that this movie had been receiving, I was blown away from this movie. It is so much better than I ever expected it to be. This movie is so much more mature, it's so much deeper, it has so much more going on under the surface, and this movie is so much more layered than I ever expected it to be. I just went into this movie expecting it to be a fun adventure movie where the comedy genuinely lands, but oh my god, the movie is so much more than that. The amount of talent here behind the animation, the writing, and the voice acting, that honestly, it surpasses what I expect out of Disney and Pixar in this day and age. This movie dives really deep into the family dynamic and tackles a lot of issues that many families go through. I think a lot of families are going to relate to this movie because I sure as hell did. And when the family is arguing, it never feels one-sided. You always understand where everybody is coming from. Despite being a typical angsty teenager, you feel the lack of support and empathy that Katie is experiencing, especially from her father. She runs a YouTube channel and she has a dream of making it into the film industry, something that she is really passionate about, and she doesn't feel that support from her father. And it hurts. And as someone who also used to dream of being in the film industry, I have definitely felt that myself. Yet at the same time, you completely identify with the father. You get the father's apprehension. You get that it's a very hard industry to get into, and he just wants the best for her to make sure that she can get a stable income. You completely identify with the father and how he feels that distance when the rest of his family has iPhones and laptops in their face. And despite the bickering that plays out throughout the movie, it never feels mean-spirited. Despite the fact that the relationship between the father and the daughter is kind of on a rocky road, throughout the entire movie I'm always getting that strong feeling that he's trying his absolute hardest to maintain the relationship between himself and his daughter. And throughout the entire movie, there isn't a single moment where I don't get a slither of doubts that he genuinely loves his daughter. And then there's other characters like Linda, the mother, or Aaron, the younger brother, who are doing everything they can to keep the peace and make sure that the other two are doing everything they can to get along. And that's another position that I again relate to. Let's talk about Katie, who is the main protagonist of the movie and the character that I relate to the most. She runs a YouTube channel, and yes, they got the rights to say YouTube, so it's a YouTube channel, not a website video channel. She's eccentric and quirky, which makes her very unique, but it also occasionally makes her a target. An aspect of her character that I again strongly relate to, especially in relation to my autism. And that's not even mentioning her passion for filmmaking and her explicit desire to make it into the film industry, and how crushing it is when people she cares about are concerned about her failure. People who say there's a very strong chance that she may not make it. I swear, Abbi is playing me in this movie. As you guys can no doubt tell, I see a lot of myself in Katie, right down to the point where her films remind me of that time in my childhood where I asked my family for Spider-Man figures just so I could make movies with them, which were god awful.
Spider-Man, I've been expecting you.
My god, Harry, what are you doing?
Ending your life, Peter Parker. You killed my father.
I missed the part where that's my problem. In addition, as someone who is a huge supporter of the LGBTQ+ community, I absolutely love the decision to make Katie queer. It's not something that dominates the movie, it doesn't define her character, it's just something that's there, it exists. And even if you just push all of that aside, the movie is just immensely entertaining. The action sequences are so well directed, they are so well made, they are so well shot, and it hits the perfect balance between being fun while still maintaining a sense of urgency. And this movie is just funny. This movie is absolutely hysterical. It is so self-aware. It knows exactly what it's trying to be. I have not laughed this hard at a movie for quite a while. I especially love this one sequence from the movie that I won't spoil for you, but it revolves around a certain toy that was really popular in the early 2000s. And I love how the movie pokes fun at this toy and has us as an audience go, yeah, that toy was kind of terrifying. I was kind of trying to forget that exists. Thank you for reminding me about that. I'm gonna have nightmares now. That scene gets absolutely ridiculous and I bloody love it. This movie is so satirical, it is so self-aware, constantly poking fun at popular tropes and cliches from movies of this genre. However, it's not so satirical that it falls into self-parody. It has a line and it hits that line just right. With one minor exception, and I'll get to that in a bit. I clearly loved this movie. This movie is fantastic. However, it is not a perfect movie. There are a couple of issues that I have with it that I am going to mention. However, they don't hinder my enjoyment of the movie that much, but they're still worth mentioning. My first issue of the movie is the pacing. I think the first 40 minutes or so are a little bit slow. I mean, none of it's bad, all of it's great, especially in the character development area. So, in a lot of ways, the first 40 minutes are incredibly important to the movie. However, at the same time, I do feel like that the movie could have gotten to the point a little bit quicker. My second issue with the movie is the villain. Now, for the most part, the villain is great. I absolutely love the villain as a character. I love the way the villain was written. The villain is pretty much spot on, except for the occasional line of dialogue. Because while the movie is often satirical and self-aware when it comes to its humour, occasionally the villain's line of dialogue is just extremely cliched. Some of the lines of dialogue that this character is given is seriously overused. And considering they're cliched lines that I am just so sick to death of, it does somewhat take me out of the movie a little bit when they make absolutely no attempt to get rid of these lines, or at the very least find a way to subvert them. Like, if you are going to go for self-aware humour and you're going to use an overused line, then why not find some way to poke fun of it? Anything. Because I am just so sick to death of dialogue exchanges like this. You're never gonna get away with this! You're right. I'm most likely not gonna get away with this. But it's gonna be fun while it lasts. I am so sick of this line that I had to subvert it myself just to get the point across while keeping my sanity. My final issue with the movie is related to the character of Aaron.
Say what now?
What is with these kids movies and characters that are at the very oldest in their pre-teens, and yet the voice actor sounds 23? Abbi as Katie is fine. The voice that she has, I can buy that she's a teenager. Aaron was voiced by Michael Rianda, the director of the movie, which is cool I guess, but his voice acting doesn't match Aaron's design. Some people say it's manageable because he doesn't talk in the movie that much. However, that's my other major issue with him. Aaron is severely pushed to the sideline in this movie. I mean, Linda is too, somewhat, but not nearly to the same extent. Aaron does a few things here and there to help out a little bit, somewhat. However, for the most part, if you take Aaron out of the movie and replace it with another character like Linda, it really doesn't affect the story much. I wish Aaron was given a lot more to do, because I bullshit you not, the bloody dog has more to do in this movie than Aaron does. I'm not kidding. The dog contributes more to the plot, and if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Apart from that, I absolutely loved The Mitchells vs. the Machines. It is by far one of the best animated movies I have seen in years. It is most certainly by far the best animated movie to come out of Sony Pictures Animation. Yes, I even liked it more than Into the Spider-Verse, which is another excellent film and is my second favourite animated movie by this company. I absolutely love this movie and it will most definitely be a must-own on Blu-ray, if they ever release it. Thank you all for watching, stay tuned till my next video, but until then, see you later.